very delighted to be here. This is the first workshop that you're doing as a part of your leadership development journey at Bank of Baroda. Before we go into the details of what we'll be covering today, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Deepti Agarwal. I'm a director with the Deloitte Human Capital Consulting practice, and I've been working in the area of leadership development, executive coaching for the past 10 years now. In fact, I was very closely involved in the design of the We Lead One program last year. So I'm super excited to be here, and I look forward to interacting with you. I'll let my colleague Zarka introduce herself now.
Hello, everyone. This is Zarka from the Human Capital Consulting team of Deloitte. I've been in consulting for the past 8 years in the areas of leadership development, organization development, and learning. This is the first time I'm interacting with Bank of Baroda participants and you all. Look forward to having a very interactive session and good luck for your journey.
Thank you, Zarka. We are also joined by Sumati, Nandita, and Drashti. So we'd request you to introduce yourself very quickly, please.
Hi everyone, this is Drashti from the Human Capital Consulting team. I'm a part of the team that is managing the BRSP project for Bank of Baroda and happy to be a part of this session.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nandita Sulayor. I've been in consulting for the past 2 years. I've also been a part of the We Lead One program, and I'm really happy to be a part of this journey as well. Looking forward to working with every one of you. Thank you. I hope you have a great session.
Thanks, Nandita. Everyone, in case of any technical difficulties, or if you get dropped out, or if you haven't received your assessment reports, I'd request you to please type it out in the chat window, and Drashti, Sumati, or Nandita would be more than happy to help you as soon as they can. Right? All right. So, with introductions aside, let's kickstart why we are here today. So today, our workshop is all about self, and it is really the foundation of any development intervention. Just understanding where you are right now, understanding what your strengths are, understanding what your development areas are, and more importantly, just understanding what your blind spots are is so crucial before you embark on any development journey. All of you as a group have gone through a series of assessments in the past, two of them being Hogan's and the 360. And what we are here to do today is really decode that information for you. It's a lot of information. Some of those words may sound very confusing. So what we intend to do today is walk you through the two Hogan's reports, which are the HPI and HTS in detail. Also walk you through the 360, which you would have responded to, and your peers, managers, and colleagues have also responded for you on the particular report, and really help you interpret some of the key takeaways for yourself, and hopefully be able to use that information and leverage some of your strengths going forward in the journey. Right. Moving on. Thanks. We'll start with Hogan's. Now, before we deep dive into Hogan's, just wanted to clarify one thing, right? Hogan's is essentially a measurement of your personality. Now, personality is different from competencies and capabilities. Mostly, in our corporate life, we've heard this word competencies, capabilities. number of times. But personality is something that is a little deeper. So think about the iceberg, right? I mean, when you have an iceberg, there is a part of the iceberg that is above the water level and which is visible to us. And then there is a part of the iceberg which is below the water level and it's not visible to us. Personality is like that part which is under the water and not visible to us. Our personality really drives some of our actions, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. And the intent of both these surveys of Hogan is to really give you an insight into what are some of your personality traits. How is it that you are perceived, and how is it that you come across to other people at work as well as at home? Because those behaviors which are so inherent to us, they really have an impact in how we behave on a day-to-day life, and also how we behave in stressful situations. The last year when we rolled out the survey to We Lead One, and it was about 324 participants, they saw a lot of value, a lot of merit in this, and it made for some very interesting conversations. Obviously, those were in-person conversations, and that really enables the process. But given the situation, we will try and do our best in a virtual platform. What I really do encourage all of you to do is ask questions. You can either raise your hand or you can type it in the chat window. But do use this time to clarify any questions that you might have on the report. Okay, moving forward, please. Right. A little bit about Hogan's. Hogan's is globally one of the most respected psychometric tools. There are more than close to 6 million assessments that have been done globally, and the data from that assessments is used as the norm database to come up with your scores or scores of anyone who takes this particular psychometric test. It is also extensively validated, and more than 1,000 validation studies have been done. Again, it's globally acclaimed, it's used globally. We certainly see a lot of merit and a lot of interesting insights that come out of these two surveys. And that's the reason why we decided to deploy this in the We Lead program. Moving forward, please. Thank you. Let's talk about the two reports that we'll be doing a deep dive into today. The first one is HPI, or the Hogan Personality Inventory. In very simple words, what this report tells you is on a normal day-to-day working situation where there are normal stresses of work, right? I mean, you don't have a work which is just without stress at all, but permissible levels of stress, something that you can handle well on a normal day. How is it that you come across as a person to your colleagues, to your peers, to the people whom you interact with? The other report, which is the HDS, or the Hogan's Development Survey, is somewhat different. What it shows is that when you've been under stressful situations for a prolonged period of time, or when you've been in a difficult situation for a prolonged period of time, then what are some of your strengths which get overused and hence end up becoming derailers, right? So that difference is very important to keep in mind as we go through, the reports in the next hour and a half. Is that HPI is really a depiction of you in a normal situation, day to day. Things are going fairly in a normal way, and HDS is something which will only take a picture when you are under prolonged stressful situations, right? Moving on, please. Okay, so let's talk about the HPI, right? Now, essentially, the report itself is divided into 7 scales, and each of the scales has a series of subscales to it, 41 if you're interested in counting. For each of the scales, you'll have a percentile, right? From 0 to 99th percentile. Anything that's between 0 to 25th percentile is considered to be a low score. From 26 to 50th percentile is considered to be a below average score. 51 to 75 is an above average score, and 76 and above is considered to be a high score. Now, very, very important thing to keep in mind is that a low score does not mean a bad score, and a high score does not mean a good score. If you're at the lower end, that means that there are a certain set of positive behaviors that you demonstrate, and there are a set of watch outs that are associated with that score as well. Similarly, even if you're on the higher end of the spectrum or you have a high percentile, then the same thing holds true. There will be a set of positive things and there will be a set of watch outs, right? Ideally, if you're anywhere between the 50th to 75th score, that's a fairly balanced profile. But do keep this in mind that a high does not mean a good score and a low does not mean a bad score, right? It's personality. It is something which is the way it is, and as you would know, right? Any personality comes with its sets of positives and its sets of watch outs. So please keep that in mind when we're going through the scores. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so let me just quickly tell you how to interpret and how to go through your report. On page 3, you will see the executive summary. What that essentially is based on a score on all the 7 scales. What are some of the key highlights or inferences that come out? So it's really the highlight of your report, and very easy to read in one single page. The next page, which is page number 4, gives you the percentiles of each of the 7 scales. And essentially, it'll tell you how you've scored as compared to the norm database in each of the different scales, right? Page 5 onwards is a deep dive on each of the scales, right? For example, here we see adjustment. So the way the page is structured is that it starts by showing how you scored on adjustment as a scale, what the interpretation of that score is, some of the things you should think about as you are going through the report, given what your score on adjustment is. And the next part is the subscale. Now, subscale really gives a nuanced deep dive into that particular scale. Important to note that unless you have very high or very low scores, it's not a very good idea to go into the subscales, only because it can confuse you. Typically, people who are experienced and accredited in giving feedback around Hogan's, it's best that they kind of go into subscales, and if you are having a one-on-one discussion, then they can really help you understand the nuance and the context and the implication of that score to you. Having said that, what it really shows is, if you look at any scale adjustment in this matter, then it can be further subdivided into categories and how have you scored against them, right? So the report is comprehensive. It gives definitions of all the scales and subscales. So you can actually go through it and get more insights if you're interested in. But my recommendation would be that look into the subscales only if you have extreme scores, right? Moving forward, please. All right. What we'll do now is talk through each of the 7 parameters, right, or the 7 scales, starting with adjustment. Adjustment really predicts the ability of a person to handle stress, manage emotions, and listen to feedback, right? So on the lower end, it's people who are on the lower end are typically people who will come across as very responsive to feedback, people who are easy to coach. However, the flip side of that could be that you might be very susceptible to stress, and you might become fairly self-critical because you really take the feedback very seriously. If you're on the higher end or on the right side of the spectrum, that's a high adjustment. So what that essentially says is that as an individual, you're fairly stress tolerant, you're very resilient, you'll take feedback in a very calm and composed manner. And these are positives. However, the flip side of it is that you might come across as someone who is resistant to feedback, right? For this particular one, let's take an example of someone who is, for instance, at an 85th or a 90th percentile on adjustment, and let's see how the positive and the watch out really plays out, right? So a person who's high on adjustment positives, uh, stays calm under pressure, will not overreact if feedback is given to him or her. Also adjusts pretty well to self-paced environments, right? However, if you look at the negative of it, right, or the flip side of it, because they are so calm and composed and feedback doesn't really affect them so much, they may not even realize when the team with whom they are working, they are stressed. They may come across as people who may tend to ignore negative feedback, right? And I wanted to sort of like call this out explicitly because again, and I'll keep on making this point throughout the webinar, is that every score will come with its sets of positives and watch outs. Right? Moving to the next one, which is ambition. Ambition is really, it predicts your leadership drive, competitiveness, initiative. People who are on the lower end of the score are people who are very comfortable being team players and team members. They are comfortable being in their sort of and doing the things that they're assigned. People who are on the higher end are people who come across as very assertive. They are very self-initiating. Flip side of it, they may come across as people who are overly competitive. Sometimes may come across as people who are restless and potentially forceful in their approach as well, right? Um, sociability is really about a person's interest in frequent and varied social interactions. So on the left side, people who are low on sociability are typically socially reactive. What I mean by that is that they'll not be the people who will be the first people to go out in the room and talk to you and interact with you. So they're more reactive than proactive in social situations. They tend to be good listeners. They tend to be quiet. Potentially, they're good at working alone. The flip side of this is that they may come across as someone who's very shy and not very approachable. If you look at the other hand, right, people with a high score, so these are people who are socially very proactive, right? And there are people typically who come across as very outgoing, extrovert. That's another word that's typically used, and they're very talkative, easy to approach. However, the flip side of that is that they may come across as people who are very attention seeking and who always want to be the center of attention in a group, right? Moving to interpersonal sensitivity, what that really is sort of indicative of is how charming, warm, tactful, and how much of social skill you have. People who are on the higher end, on the right end, are typically people who come across as very warm. They're very agreeable. They're friendly, and those are some very very positive things about a person with a high score. However, on the flip side, typically these people, because they want to be in a warm environment, they want to be in a friendly environment, they are not the best at confronting with conflict, right? So if you look at if you take this at your work situation, people who are high on interpersonal sensitivity maybe might not be very comfortable giving harsh performance feedback, right? Because that's something that doesn't come very naturally to them. On the other hand, if you look at people who are low on the scale, they typically come across as, people who are very direct, people who are very objective in the way they view things, and they're very frank. And those are good things, right? People will come, a lot of people, even when it comes to difficult situations. However, the watch out over here is that you may come across as someone who's very cold and very tough, right? And that's something to sort of keep in mind if you have a low score on interpersonal sensitivity. The next one is prudence. And prudence is all about self control, conscientiousness, and work ethic. People typically who are on the higher end are people who are very organized, right? So these would be people who have a plan in mind, and they'll have a very detailed plan around it, and they will always go executing the plan exactly the way they had it in mind, right? So they're very dependable, they're very organized. However, the flip side of that is that they may tend to be quite inflexible because they are so um, focused on executing anything in the manner which has been planned right in the beginning. Um, on the other hand, if you are on the left side of the spectrum, a lower score, um, you're more flexible. You are open-minded. You're open to trying new approach. You're open to deviating from the original plan of action. However, uh, too much of that, you may come across as someone who is impulsive, which essentially means that you're so flexible that you probably don't think through what the repercussions of a change would be. Right, so that's prudence. The next scale is inquisitive. Inquisitive scale really predicts curiosity, creativity, openness to new ideas, to new experiences. Um, People who are high on inquisitive are people who come across as being very imaginative, very very strategic, open-minded. However, the flip side of that is that sometimes they come across as people who are not very practical in their approach, right? So you come up with some very interesting ideas, but then when it comes to implementation, that's something that you struggle with. So that's inquisitive. On the left side, if you're on the left side of the spectrum, then essentially people who are low on the score come across as people who are very grounded, very practical, and they don't get easily bored even when they're doing very practical things, which is important in any job. However, the watch out over here is that they may come across as someone who's not very inventive and who probably has just thinks about the short term and does not have a very long term thinking. The last one is the learning approach, right? And learning approach is really about your learning style. How do you learn? Or what's your preferred way of acquiring new knowledge, new skills? Right now, people who are high on the scale, right, on learning approach, are typically people who love learning by using traditional by the book approach, right? And they would really like to learn new things which are interesting to them. They or typically will keep themselves updated with all the latest trends, with all the research. They value education. Um, and they'll probably push learning opportunities not just for themselves but also for their team members and their peers. Those are like the great positives of it. The watch outs over here is that sometimes they might just get so carried away with the concept of learning, with the idea of learning, that they may end up focusing too much on it and not so much on the tasks or the things at work which are not interesting to them. They may also push learning too much to their team, right? And that may be overwhelming for someone who potentially in the team is on the lower end of learning approach, right, or has a lower score. Now let's talk about the people who are on the lower end, right? I mean, those are people who like to learn by doing, right? So they're very hands-on in their learning. Training when they're doing things, right? On-the-job training is something that they enjoy doing. They but having said that, the flip side of that is that they may come across as people who are not very interested in knowing more about the broader sort of business world. They may come across as people who are very focused on their interests and do things which matter to them and which are of consequence to them. Right? So that's kind of like in a nutshell what each of these 7 scale means. Can we move to the next slide? Drashti, Nandita, can we move to the next slide, please?
Deepthi, I'm already on the subscales in HPI slide.
Oh, probably then it's probably a lag from my end. Okay, so just looking at the subscales, essentially what it shows is the nuances, right? Like I spoke about, what are the nuances of a subscale, and I'm not able to see it, so let me just open the deck at my end as well. Right. Just a quick check. Is everyone able to see the subscales, or is it only me?
No. It's not visible.
It's not visible, right?
Yeah. Take it back and do it again. I'm sure doing
Yeah,
it.
now it's visible.
is.
Is it visible for
Now
everyone?
it has come.
Yes, okay, probably a lag. Thanks for that, Nandita. All right. So on the subscales, I'll take an example of sociability, right? So if you look at sociability, it's got these 5 subscales like parties, like crowds, experience seeking, exhibitionist, entertaining. How you read this is that you'll see yellow boxes and gray boxes. Essentially, anything that's, the more the yellow boxes you have against a particular subscale, it essentially shows that you've scored higher on that particular subscale. And if you have more gray boxes, then essentially it shows that you've scored lower. In some cases, you might have a dotted line as well. And what that shows is an invalid score, which can happen if you've contradicted yourself in multiple places, then it could be an invalid score. And in some cases, you'll see all gray boxes, which essentially means that you scored a 0 percentile on that particular line item, which is why it's showing as a 0. Right now imagine a person who's kind of high on sociability, right? And it could still have like these nuances, right? That person might enjoy parties, might enjoy crowds, but might be very low on exhibitionist, right? Which is essentially saying that he or she probably does not really like being the center of attention, right? So those are the kind of nuances which can come out by looking at the subscales. But again, like I said, it makes sense to go into this only if you have very high or very low scores. Right. I'll pause over there now. I realize that there's a lot of information that I've given, but would love to hear from you if you have any questions, anything that I can clarify for you before we move on to the next report. And like I said, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself, ask that question. You can raise a hand, or if you feel more comfortable, please type out your query in the chat window as well. Yes, Pankaj, you have a question. Do you mind unmuting yourself and just asking it?
Yeah. So whether these reports are sent to us, because I have not received this report.
Okay. Drashti, can I request you to just send this report to Pankaj as soon as you can? Ideally, Pankaj, this has been shared with all the participants, but there might have been a slip. Apologies for that. You should get this in the next few minutes.
Sure, Deepti, we are just on it.
Okay.
Please just allow us 5-7 minutes. We'll be working towards sending it.
Yeah, sure, Drashti. Thank you. Anyone else who doesn't have their reports, please do call that out, and we'll ensure that this gets to you in the next 10-15 minutes. So like I was saying, typically when we do this session in person, there are a lot of questions that happen, but I do realize that's probably because of the setting as well, and it's a lot more easier to interact when you have people sitting in a group discussing their report. So it's absolutely okay if you need some more time to kind of reflect on your report and take some more time. What we will do towards the end of the session is share with you, email IDs as well as a number where you can call and drop in a query in case you have any questions after the session. All right. What we'll do is move to the second report, which is the Hogan's Development Survey. Slightly different way to interpret this report. Like I said, right, HDS as a report talks about scales and talks about behaviors which are demonstrated when you have been under prolonged stress, right? So it's not normally, like right now, you and I, we are conversing, we are in a workshop, we are learning about something new. None of this will come out in that time, right? But think about a situation where, probably there's been a deadline. There's a lot of pressure coming from your manager, from your boss. Things have not gone as planned. And that's just a hypothetical situation. But those are the kind of situations where potentially some of these HDS scales play up. Now, much like the HPI, this one has 11 primary scales, and each of the scales has 3 subscales, so 33 subscales in all. You have a percentile, and you're scored against the norm database. Anything that's between 0 to 39th percentile is a no-risk score. Anything that's between 40th to 69th percentile is a low-risk score. 70 to 89 is moderate risk, and anything that's above 90 is a high risk score. Now, different from HPI, here we focus on the scores where you have high risk scores, right? So anything that's 90th percentile and above. If you don't have anything above the 90th percentile, then we go into the moderate risk zone, right? Even if you have a no risk score, it's not that there aren't any watch outs, but quite honestly, those watch outs, those are essentially your underutilized strengths. They're not your overutilized strengths, and hence they will not be derailers, right? So just for the sake of simplicity, what I will ask you to do is really focus on the high risk scores. And if you don't have any, then the moderate risk scores. Also, word of caution, if you see like 4 or 5 of these high risk, don't go into a panic zone. It's absolutely normal, on an average for any individual to have anywhere between 3 to 4 high risk scores, right? That is something that we've seen, throughout the time that we've been using Hogan's, right? Let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so the structure is very similar
Can
to it.
Can you go back to previous slide once?
Sure.
See here, you're talking about no risk. What does it say actually?
So
Can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. So what this report will essentially show is that for each of the 11 scales, which I'll walk you through, you get a percentile, right? You get a score. If you score between 0 to 39th percentile, what that essentially says is that your score is that of, you don't have any of those derailers which will probably come into picture in those high risk situations, right? So it's a no risk score for you. So something that you do not need to necessarily worry about. On the other hand, if you have a higher score, which is more than 90th percentile, then essentially the chances of these derailers coming into picture or playing out in a high stress situation would be higher for you.
Unlike personality inventory, this is different. In
Yes.
personality inventory, if it is low, then also a problem. If it is high, then also a problem. Here, if it low risk means it's good.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I wouldn't call it a problem, but yes, you're absolutely right. In HPI, both a high and a low score comes with its sets of positives and its sets of watchouts. However, in HDS, a high score is what you need to be really working on. A no risk score, or for that matter, even a low risk score, will come out with some watch outs, but again, the chances of them playing out in a high stress situation are minimal.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. We also have a question. G. Kumar, you have some problem with your video. I assume it's because of a bandwidth issue. I hope as long as you're able to hear me, it should be fine. Okay. All right. So coming back to the structure of the report, so very similar to the way the HPI report is structured. Page number 3 will give you an overall summary of what the insights are based on your overall scores across all the 11 scales. Page 4 will give you how you scored against each of those 11 scales. And page 5 is going to be a one-page deep dive into each of the scales. Very important to read the description of what the, and this as well as an HPI, right? Very important to read what the scale really means, because in a lot of cases, the English meaning of that particular word is different from how Hogan defines it. And it's sort of like, intuitively, if you don't read the report, your mind will just be conditioned to go back to the English dictionary meaning, right? Which might not be accurate in all cases. So do read what the description is, which is essentially what the definition is. Then it talks about the interpretation of your score based on how you've scored. It talks about some things which you could think about, and then it talks about the subscales. So that's really how the HTS report is structured, right? Let's talk about each of the scales now, right? We'll start with excitable. Excitable essentially measures behaviors ranging from, on the left, emotional calmness, to, on the right, emotional explosiveness, right? What that really means is, again, just look at the high part of it, that in a stressful situation, if you've scored high, more than the 90th percentile on this score, then in those situations, you may end up coming across as someone who is very easily annoyed, emotionally volatile. What that means is that at times you might be very excited, come across as someone who's very excited about a project, about something, and then all of a sudden you may become very disappointed, right? So it's very unpredictable to work with people in high stress situations. Again, I'm emphasizing the fact in high stress situations. This is not a behavior in a normal day-to-day situation. That's what excitable is about. Skeptical. It measures behaviors which range from having confidence in others, trusting them, to, on the right side, having having a deceptive behavior and being easily disappointed by people. So people who have a high score are typically people who would be very cynical, who would become very mistrustful when it comes to stressful situations, right? So to just put it in perspective, if it's a very high stress situation and you are not being able to cope up with it, then instead of trusting your team members, you start doubting them and you start questioning them, right? And again, this behavior will not come out normally. Normally, you might be very trustful of your team members, and you may have a excellent rapport with them, and you believe that in their capabilities. But in stressful situations, this might end up happening for you, right? So that's what skeptical really talks about. The next one is cautious. And cautious as a scale measures behaviors which range from having from willingness to undertake something new, a new venture, to having a reluctance in trying something new on the right side, right? So typically people on the who are high on cautious in stressful situations will become very conservative in their approach, right? They only want to do what's tried and tested. They are not, they don't want to do anything new. And they're like, this is how it's done. This is how I've done it earlier, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's a stressful situation, and just go ahead and do it the way it's supposed to be, right? So that's how cautious will play out. The next one is reserved, and reserved really measures behaviors which range from caring about the problems of others on the left-hand side to seemingly being indifferent to others, right? So people who are high on this particular scale in high stress situations, they come across as being, they become reserved. So they become very aloof. They become almost unapproachable, and they go in their own shell, right? They don't want to communicate with you or with others, and they may come across as people who are indifferent to others' feelings, right? Because it's anyways a stressful situation, and then you stop communicating because that's your sort of derailer which kicks in during stressful times. The next one is leisurely, and leisurely is actually a very interesting one. Leisurely measures behaviors which range from being cooperative and open to feedback. if you have a low score, which is a no risk score, and on the right, being very stubborn, and potentially hard to coach, right? So typically what leisurely would be that if you have a high score on this, and in a stressful situation, while you may nod your head and say, yes, I agree, and I will go ahead and do this, but internally you actually don't agree with this, right? So you'll be overtly cooperative, but internally you would be uncooperative, right? So in fact, one of the sub-scales around in leisurely is also passive aggressive, right? So that could be a kind of a behavior which comes out if you score high on leisurely. The next one is bold, and bold measures behaviors which range from from modesty, if you're on a low risk score, and if you're a high risk score, then someone who does self promotion, probably someone who has an unrealistic expectation of success and power. What I mean by that is that people who have a high score on this tend to feel that they're very entitled, again, in high stress situations, and they may come across as arrogant. The next one is mischievous, and mischievous is it's essentially having an appetite for risk or testing limits. Let's just try it out for the for the heck of it, for the fun of it. And it measures behaviors which range from, being seemingly quiet to being like too charming, or, charming to the extent where you become careless, right? So you because the stress has hit you in a way that you're unable to deal with it, you end up becoming careless, and you just kind of don't give the due importance that that particular work needs at that point. The next one is colorful, and colorful is about how you express yourself in high stress situations. So in high stress situations, you may come across. Again, it measures behaviors from being modest to being very dramatic and noisy, and express yourself in a very colorful manner. Imaginative is it measures behaviors which range from being practical, sensible, and grounded to being imaginative and unpredictable. Right? Again, in this particular scale, if you're high on this, what typically will end up happening is that you'll come up with ideas, with a lot of ideas. So you end up just throwing ideas, and these could be ideas which are imaginative to the point that they are not practical at all, right? So a bit eccentric, and so you completely sort of deviate from what's doable to something that's not doable. That's what imaginative is about. Diligent measures behaviors from being relaxed to sort of being very almost like a perfectionist, right? So you would see people who in stressful situations end up becoming very, very meticulous, and almost to the point of micromanaging, and it's very hard to please them in that situation, right? Because they have a very clear picture of how things need to be done. And the last one is dutiful, which is really about it ranges from being independent on the lower end, and being willing to challenge others, to being too conforming and reluctant to take any independent action. So these are people who in high stress situations will stop thinking on their own, and they will just adhere almost deferential to your leaders or the managers, and just say yes to whatever they say without having an independent thought process. Right now, I mean, if you see this particular slide on the low score, also you might see some negatives, right? And these are underutilized strengths, but the chances of that playing out in a stressful situation are low for you, which is why I'm not like emphasizing on it so much. Right? Let's move to the next slide, please. All right. The subscales, again, they can be interpreted in a very similar manner like the HPI. just that there's a difference of color. So anything that's red essentially is a high, is essentially a you're high on that particular subscale, and anything that is more of grays than red, then you are not demonstrating much of that particular attribute or that behavior, right? So let's just take an example. For example, if we take skeptical, right? It talks about being cynical, being mistrusting, and grudges. So you may be high on skeptical, but you may be low on grudges, which is, and high on mistrusting, which is essentially how this is going to play out, is that you may have problems in trusting others, but you may not hold grudges against them. You know, it's a passing thing. It'll go off, pass away. While if you're high on grudges, then probably it's something that you will keep with you for a much longer time, and you'll hold grudge against a person for a longer time, right? So again, these are different nuances to each of these 11 scales. What I'll do now is I'll pause for a few minutes, and would love to hear if there are any questions around this. Like I said, don't go into panic mode if you have like 3, 4, 5 of these in the high risk zone. That's perfectly normal to have. I'll pause over there, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Like I said, you can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand, or you can just type on the chat window. There's a message from Mohit saying that he's getting some error on opening his reports. Drashti, if you could just check on that. Thanks. Sure, thank you. Okay. Right, if there are no questions, let's move forward. What we also wanted to share with you is, aggregates. And these are average scores of the entire 575 people who are going through the journey. So as a group average, if you see, it's a fairly balanced profile. I mean, there are some scores which are less than a 50th percentile, and some which are bordering towards 75th percentile, but overall a pretty balanced profile of the group as a whole. Even when it comes to HDS, no, on an average, it's not above 90th percentile at all, but there are some subscales or some scales that are in the moderate risk zone, right? So that's what that essentially shows. Is if we move to the next slide, these are some of the insights that we came up with, right? Like from an inquisitive perspective, it's slightly on the higher end, so it just shows that as a whole, it's a pretty imaginative, open-minded group. So there might be a risk of not giving enough importance and enough focus on implementation. From a learning approach perspective, it seems that the group enjoys learning through traditional ways and academic activities. Pretty sociable group, and I think we've all been witness to that as well in the previous workshops. Pretty outgoing and approachable group, and considerate and open to listening to each other. From a HDS perspective, bold is something that came across as, again, a moderate risk. So maybe there might be times when you take up challenges and take up risks, and that's fine. But it'll be important for you as a group to keep in mind that you don't become overly demanding and overly of the other people around. Leisurely is also a moderate risk at an overall level, which essentially shows that the group might again come across as cooperative, but might internally not be very cooperative, right? So these are just a few insights at the overall group level. Obviously, I know it's a bit generic, and it's going to be more important for you to focus on, your particular individual reports, right? I also wanted to play out a few examples of how the two reports interact with each other. For example, there is, you have HPI and you take a person who has a low inquisitive score. What that essentially means is that this person has tried and tested ways of approaching things, probably not the first person to try something new. And then on top of it, if you take, if the same person is high on cautious when it comes to HDS, right, then that combination becomes a little bit of a double-edged sword, because on a normal day you tend to try out only a few things, and that's how you function. And in a stressful situation, you become very, very cautious of trying out anything new, right? So the impact of that on the team could be something that you want to think about, right? So there are some sort of combinations and watch outs that you need to be mindful of when you look at HPI and HDS together, right? Is there a question? Okay. Any questions overall? The next section is about the 360, which is really on the Bank of Baroda competency model. But if you have any questions on HPI, HDS, the construct, how to interpret the report, we'd be happy to answer them right now. Okay, all right. So in the interest of time, moving on, what I'll do is hand it over to Zarka now, who will walk us through the 360 report and help you interpret it. So over to you, Zarka.
Thanks, Dipti, for a really interactive session on Hogan, HPI, and HDS. So the next session, which we'll discuss in the next 30 minutes or so, is mainly about the 360-degree assessment. I'm sure most of you at some point of time in your life would have either been a participant to a 360-degree assessment or would have given the feedback or a response to one of the participants' 360-degree assessment. So what is a 360-degree assessment? A 360-degree assessment mainly gives you a complete holistic picture of your strength and opportunity areas, certain blind spots which you might not realize. It gives you a complete perspective view of yourself, of your managers, of your peers, and your subordinates who you yourself have nominated. So from this slide, if you see, there are 575 Bank of Baroda rising stars, and there are a total of around 3821 reviewers, which consist of subordinates, managers, peers, and yourself as well. So roughly around 6 to 6.5 reviewer per participant, which is fairly decent number to understand your opportunity and strength areas, which are the competencies which are Bank of Baroda leadership standards which you have to work on, and some of them which are your strengths. So can we move to the next slide? So I'll not spend much of my time here because these are your Bank of Baroda leadership standards, which is basically strategic thinking, ownership and initiative, teamwork and collaboration, stakeholder partnering, driving learning, innovation and change, and execution and business excellence. Your 360-degree assessment was based on these 6 leadership standards of Bank of Baroda. The questions, the responses, everything was based around these 6 leadership areas only. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So this entire session will be explaining you how to read the report. I'm sure just like the Hogan, you must have received your 360-degree assessment report as well. Now from the snapshot given here, you will see that the report consists of your assessment details. It also consists of your all score summary, an overall summary, a relationship summary. But the main focus, or our particular focus, or your focus should be mainly on these 6 leadership standards of Bank of Baroda, and where you stand on each of these standards. So this is how you read the report. We'll of course take you through each section in detail in the next slide, but your focus should be mainly on your leadership standards. Yeah, thank you. So this is an all score summary where you'll in a gist, in a graph, you'll understand on the 360-degree report where do you stand. So if I see on the left side, these are all the leadership standards of Bank of Baroda, which is strategic thinking, ownership, and so on. On the top right, is there a fictitious candidate, which is Shashank, his manager scores, his direct reports, his peers. Then there is an overall score, which is the average score achieved across all the reviewer groups. And then there's a benchmark score, which is the average scores compared to all the participants of the group. If you see down, there are key indicating strengths, moderate strengths, and development areas based on the scores between the range of 1 to 10. So let's take an example of strategic thinking. Now for strategic thinking, Shashank has rated himself 7.2 from the range of 1 to 10. His manager, which is a clear strength, that's why it is highlighted as green. His manager has rated himself as 3.8, which is a clear development need. His direct report has rated him around 5.9, which is a moderate strength. His peers have rated him 7.5, and that's why it is again a strength. Overall, Shashank's score on strategic thinking particularly is 6.1, which comes around moderate strength. However, the benchmark score or the group as a whole has scored around 7.8, which is a strength for them. So this is how each competency is being rated in this snapshot. For each competency, you have to see your scores vis-a-vis the reviewers you had selected, how they have scored as compared to the benchmark score as well. Can we move? Yeah. So the scores which you have seen in the previous slide, over here it has been represented in a spiral graph. You can see the innermost circle lies with 0.1, which is the 1 point, and the outermost is at the range of 10. The gap between each line is one, indicating 1 point. So it starts from 1, it ranges to 10. The green highlighted spiral graph or the shaded area which you see represents the average scores which you have got from all the reviewers who took part in the assessment. This also includes your own self score. So it just gives you a spiral representation of where at which competency your scores are. The competency names are presented in the outermost area. Below is the index. You can see that over there. So this mainly gives you a summary of your scores on each competency, and you can realize from this graph on which competency comes across your strength and which is the competency where you need to work on little. Can we move? Yeah. So I know there is a lot going on this slide. We'll take this slide part by part. So if you see the left slide, which is the left graph, it says the green area, which is the average scores which we saw earlier. The gray area, which is a dashed outline, represents the average scores from everyone else apart from you. So what this actual graph shows you is where you have rated yourself high or low and where the rest of the people have rated you. We'll take one competency as an example. If you see strategic thinking, Shashank has rated himself, which is the green shade, higher than what rest of the group leaving him have rated him, which is the gray shaded area. So this graph typically tells you how you can compare yourself and compare yourself with what the others have rated you. It mainly showcases you where you lie and what are some of your blind spots or some of your strengths which you don't see but the others see in the group. Similarly, when we move to the right side, you see there are 4 graphs. One is of the participant himself, One is of the manager, one is of the direct reports, and one is of the peer. Each have a graph or a spiral chart presented for them. What this graph says is where the person, the reviewer, has rated him. For example, if you see the manager, which is the purple highlight, the manager has rated Shashank quite low than what the average group or the average reviewer group has rated him. Similarly, the direct reports have rated him very similar to what the average group has rated him. The peers have rated him very high than what the average reviewers have rated Shashank. So these four graphs give you a graphical representation of where each group has rated him differently from the rest of the reviewers. This is how both the graphs are to be played. Can we move? Yeah. So let's deep dive into one competency for a deeper understanding, which is strategic thinking. Now, again, in this particular graph as well, if you see the left side, it is mainly about the reviewers, Shashank, manager, direct reports, peers, and overall. The icons which you see with the symbol of M, S, D, P, the icons are mainly the scores. The position of the icon says where the scores lie. For example, Shashank's score mainly lies 7.2, hence it is plotted on the graph as 7.2. Manager has given him an average score of 3.8, hence it is plotted on 3.8, and so on and so forth. What you see the gray bar below, which is the overall score, is the average score for the participant, where the gray line shows the range between the minimum and maximum scores. It shows the range in which most of the scores were given. So if you see the range lies between 3.8 to 7.4 or 7.5. What you see in the middle, which is the blue broad band, you must be confusing or wondering that why these blue broad bands are there. Now the broader light blue band, which says 50% of participants lie between these bands. The dark blue, the middle band, says where 25% of participant scores lie. So this graph gives you a perspective of where you lie vis-a-vis the group. For example, when you see Shashank's scores on himself, he lies between the 50 to 25% of the participant score or where the group has scored. However, the manager has scored him much farther away than the light blue band. The peers have scored him exactly to where 25% of the participants have scored them. So this entire graph will give you a clear understanding on each competency where this participant or where you lie vis-a-vis what the rest of the groups have scored and how much is the range of your scores. Any questions? Because I know this is a bit of too many numbers happening on this slide. Any questions? Sure. Then we'll move ahead. Yeah, similarly as Hogan, how we went deep dive into each scales to understand the subscales. Similarly, each competency or leadership standard of Bank of Baroda is broken down or is consisted of 8 statements. This slide particularly will explain to you what each statement and where have you and your reviewer group has scored on those statements. For example, there is a possibility that strategic thinking according to you is not a opportunity area, but in this slide you'll understand which of the statement is your opportunity area where you will have to deep dive it. For example, it is particularly useful for identifying your strength and development needs about each individual behavior rather than a more general or generic strategic thinking itself. You need to specific more on each statement and then deep dive to what is your strength and which you need to work upon. Sorry, anybody has any question? Okay. Yeah. So Similarly, as you have seen in strategic thinking, there are such graphs for each competency or leadership standard mentioned for Bank of Baroda. So each competency you will have to look into detail as to not the competency or the leadership standard overall. You have to go into detail, understand on which statement where you have scored yourself, where your reviewers have scored yourself, and then work upon your development and strength areas. I'll pause here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer on the 360-degree.
Pankaj, did you have a question?
Assessment is very low compared to the assessment given by others, whether it is peers or manager or subordinate. So why does it happens, and what does it mean that self-assessment is always lower side compared to other assessment?
I'll take that question, Zarka. So, Pankaj, if I understood your question correctly, what you're saying is that your self score is lower as compared to how others have rated you. Is that and why is that the case? Right?
But
Yeah.
not in one parameter. In all parameters, self-assessment is very low compared to others.
Right.
So
Right.
do I rate myself low, or what does it mean?
So what it essentially means, Pankaj, is that across, and this is something which is specific to you. I'm sure it might happen with everyone, but it is certainly not a norm that happens with everyone. Essentially, what it's saying is that, I mean, what you would want to reflect on is that are you being potentially too critical on yourself? Because all the other people consistently, if you know, I haven't seen your report, but if consistently your your peers, your direct reports and managers have rated you more than or rated your competency as a strength, but you've rated it as a development area, or then the first question would be, are you being too critical on yourself? In this particular case, a good way of thinking about it would also be to look at your HPI, score, and see if your adjustment is low. Because like I said, right, adjustment is all about looking for a lot of feedback, but then you also tend to be a person who's very critical about feedback, right? That could be one potential thing. I'm not sure of what your HPI report looks like, but a nice way to address this would be, and this is true for everyone, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time for people to give you feedback on your 360. So many stakeholders have. It's good to set up time with them, thank them for the feedback that they've given, and maybe have a candid conversation around it, right? You know, what is it that you see, and why is it that you've, not why, but you've rated me this way. Thank you for that. Would love to hear on what made you rate me this way, any things that I can start, that I should continue doing, anything that I need to start doing differently. And that will probably give you a perspective, Pankaj, on why the difference is there, right, between how you've rated yourself and how others have rated you. Does that help answer a little bit of your question?
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? Zarka, back to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vithi. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So now that we have gone through in detail on three of your reports mainly, HPI, which is the Hogan Personality Inventory, HDS, Hogan Development Survey, and the 360-degree assessment, we would want you to do a self-reflection. Now, this is something you yourself will have to understand going through your reports in detail. I know in today's session, you must have not yet gone through your reports in detail, so it will take a little bit time. But once the session gets over, go through your reports, understand what the report says based on this session, and identify two things. What is the one insight from the report that surprised you? There may be certain things which you wouldn't have expected to be coming out from the report, but it has. And why has that surprised you? And the other is, what is that one insight from the report which you really found interesting? Now, maybe the things which surprised you also you found interesting, or there could be something which is new, which you again did not expect, uh, and you find that very interesting from the report, saying that really is this something which I have answered, or that my peers or my reviewers have answered. You could do this in discussion, as Deepti mentioned, with your peers and your reviewers as well. You can have a very good candid conversation with them, understand why they have rated you on certain competencies or leadership standards, and also interact with them on what is that one insight which surprised you and you found it interesting as well. This is one of your self reflection exercise which you should be doing post this entire webinar. Can we move to the next? Yeah. The other self-reflection, or the other detailed self-reflection, I would say, is now when you go through the entire report, you need to identify what are your strength and opportunity areas. You need to take these into conjunction with all your three reports. You have to look at your HPI, your HDS, as well as your 360-degree assessment, understand what are some of your areas of strength, some of the areas of opportunity. Opportunity areas, not every time means that this is something which you are weak at. It always means that it's a development area where you can work on. It's a watch out area for you. You have to work on it to improve better. And strengths are something which you feel is going very good for you and your role, and this is something you should continue to leverage. The second part is, what are my blind spots? This is particularly to 360-degree assessment. It can be used in Hogan as well, but very clearly for 360-degree assessment, because what are blind spots? Blind spots are something which you yourself are not aware that are your development areas. But looking at your reviewer scores, you might realize that, okay, maybe I feel that this is something is my strength, but my reviewers don't feel this. So that's your blind spot. That is something which you avoid or you are not able to see, and the reviewers are helping you see it more. So this you can list down. The third is your hidden strengths. Similarly, as blind spots, there might be certain hidden strengths where you yourself have rated yourself very low. Similarly, as the example which we just took, but the peers or the reviewers, the others have rated them yourself high. So these are some of your hidden strengths which you are not seeing it. However, the people around you are able to showcase it or show it to you. Therefore, those are your hidden strengths which you are not able to understand, and you can write it down or list it down as well. The fourth part is, what are some of the qualitative inputs or comments from my stakeholders? Now, if you see, each competencies or each leadership standards were detailed out in statements as mentioned earlier. What are some of the statements which you feel your reviewers or stakeholders have rated you low or high on? So you can focus on those particular statements and the qualitative inputs and understand why they have rated you as low or why they have rated you as high. So these are some of the self-reflection exercises which you should be doing post this webinar, which definitely will help you towards the entire journey. And now we understand this is just one part of your leadership journey, and there will be certain next steps as well. Deepti, would you want to take them through the next steps?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Zarka. Before I move to the next steps, one of a very good way to sort of get a perspective on your reports and your data is to, especially the Hogans, is to take it to your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, your close friend, whoever you're very comfortable with, whoever you spend a lot of time with. Often we've seen that, just on a lighter note, that people are like, why did you have to go through a entire psychometric test for this? We see this in you all the time. But, it makes for a very interesting conversation because people who are near and dear to us and who stay with us all the time, especially now, given this whole COVID situation, we're spending a lot more time with them. Stress levels have increased in general. Some of those derailers might be coming into picture, right? So over the weekend, make some time out, and we would urge you to do that, and spend that time with your spouse, or someone with whom you're very close, and just walk them through what your report is, and see if they have any insights and any observations in you, right? Moving on to one exercise that we'd like you to do, and this is purely for you, is to draft your leadership signature. What do we mean by leadership signature, right? Today everything that we've spoken about is about self, about your strengths, about your development areas, strengths that you can leverage, development areas that you need to work on, some of the blind spots like Zarka spoke about, and all these things manifest not just in your professional life, right? They manifest in your personal life as well. The way things are right now, the way the pace of work is, the pace of life is, we don't spend that time on ourselves. We don't spend that time reflecting on what's important for us. So we want you to think about yourself in three buckets, right? Your work, your family, and yourself. When it comes to work, take home one question. Where am I today, and where do I want to be? We don't have any guidelines on think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 1 year from now, 2 years from now. It's up to you. But just spend some time thinking about where you are today from a work perspective and where do you want to be. From a family perspective, right? Often we ignore this. What are my hopes and aspirations when it comes to my family? Typically, we have a very clear picture of what our hopes and aspirations are when it comes to a career. But have you stepped back to really think about what are those aspirations when it comes to my family? Think about it. Your kids, your spouse, your parents, your siblings related to them. What are your aspirations, and where do you stand on them now? And to yourself, what makes you happy? What are those three things that make you happy? It could be a hobby, it could be a passion, it could be work, it could be anything, right? But sometimes you just get lost in the pace of work so much that you don't spend that time thinking about what makes you happy as an individual. So what are those three things that make me happy, and where do I stand on these today? Once you've answered the questions in these three broad categories, think about one or two things which you will, start doing differently when it comes to your work, when it comes to your family, and when it comes to yourself. This is for no one else. This is no homework that needs to be submitted. It is purely for yourself. And you have a leadership journal, I understand, which you would have received. You can use that to kind of jot down your thoughts. And as you progress through this beautiful wheelie journey, just go back and keep on reflecting on where you are right now and where you want to be, notes that you make in your journal. Right. So that's one ask that we have of you. Quickly, in terms of what's upcoming when it comes to the journey, what we've done today is spoken about Hogans. We've spoken about the capabilities. Going forward, we'll do a deep dive into some of these capabilities, right? And these will be more from a future of work perspective, from a futuristic perspective. What is it that you can do, and how can you build some of these capabilities? So we have a session on inspirational leadership, building talent, influencing, and emotional intelligence coming up for you in the next few weeks and months. And like I said, in case of any questions at any point, and it could be operational question, or it could be related to your reports, or it could be related to the journey, you can reach out to us on either via email, and there are two email IDs which have been specified, and you could make a note of it, or you could also get in touch with us on the BOB help desk, and the number is right there on the screen. That was really it from us, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you virtually, not in person, but we'll make the most of how things are right now. Any closing questions, any closing thoughts before we call it a day? Okay, lovely. Well, it's been great interacting with you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your patience. We are done with the workshop for today.
Thank you, everyone.